Hello, construction professionals. Welcome to the podcast where we flip the script on what it means to live, breathe, and lead construction today. In this podcast series, we unpack how great construction can really be when you lead with humanity, put people first, and drop the bullshit of the way it's always been done. Our world has changed, our conversations have changed, and it's time construction catches up. Hello, professionals. Welcome to another episode, People First, Then Construction. Jonathan Cinelli here. I can't thank you enough for spending time together. If you haven't already, pull out your phone, subscribe so that the messages we share land in the laps of people where we can make a difference. Sitting across the table from me, David Cinelli, an award-winning realtor, a national top producer. David Cinelli is one of GTA's most sought-after agents. He uses key digital marketing strategies and extensive knowledge of current market trends paired with his ability to sell homes fast and for top dollar, making him your most valuable resource when buying or selling real estate. Award recipient of the new Executive Circle of Top 2% Individual Agents in Canada 2018 to 2021. He's a Diamond Award winner, top 10 agents for Royal Lepage in Ontario for 2021, like rock star. And here's what's important about that. Because David is here to talk about what it's like to do it differently and flip the script on real estate today. Buckle up. This one is huge. We are in for some real shit. And there's been some episodes where there's been a lot less swearing. This one isn't that. So if swearing isn't your thing, then this might not be for you. And if you can live past that, there are some amazing nuggets of gold. See, here's the thing. Look, I had the pleasure. David is my first cousin. What that really means is that I've spent an extensive amount of time throughout my life sitting across from tables with him at many family events, laughing, singing, going through ups and downs together. And when you're family, you see the real shit. You go through those tremendous upswings and downward swings. And today I'm honored to be part of a mastermind group that includes Dave. Real shit happens when you surround yourself with great people. And this is something Dave talks about. Dave talks about how he does it differently because it's non-transactional. It's not about the money. It never has been about the money. And if you think that's bullshit, then you better buckle up because he'll tell you what it's really like, why he got into it. He doesn't subscribe to the it's my way or the highway. He actually gives a shit about people. He helps people make their own name. He wants to groom people to be better. He gives recognition. Get this. He actually believes in so much self-directed learning that he hired a coach. Why? Because he said, listen, all the education, the real estate world, they tell you how not to get sued. How many education programs did you work through that are cover your own ass? Cool. And he worked with a coach because a coach told him what it's like to run a business and what it takes to succeed in the real estate market. When asked, Dave, who gives a shit? Why bother doing it differently? You know what his answer is? I hated the way I felt when I was on the other side. Holy shit. To actually have empathy and understand what others are going through so that you can show up differently. This is what we're talking about. This is why it makes a difference. And when asked, what's one big thing, Dave, that helps you elevate yourself and keeps you going? Having a schedule is huge. Your schedule will make or break you. That's exactly what Dave said. So pivoting into that, I think it's a great opportunity to share with you stuff that works for me. I use Intelligent Change Products, the productivity planner. Actually give a shit. Plan what you want to do through the day. Plan the night before. Plan the morning up. I don't care when it is you choose to plan. Figure out your schedule and do it. Intelligent Change Products, productivity planners, journals. Tremendously cool. Link will be in the show notes. Use code Jonathan10, save 10%. It's a big deal and it makes a difference. Look, we're here today because we give a shit, because we want to do it differently, because we want to flip the script on the way it's always been done, change a narrative, make big shifts. And it is truly humbling and honoring. Look, this episode is powerful. I am tremendously grateful to be in the presence of Dave. He's been a great role model, a huge support network. Listen in closely. You'll understand how Dave does it differently, how he leaves an impact and creates amazing experiences with the people he connects with. Like all the shit that we've talked about in past episodes, it is so magical because it's real and it makes a difference. And Dave bundles that together and shares that with us. So hang tight. This one's going to be tremendously exciting. Dave, it's exciting to have you here. Pleasure. I'm at a loss for words. There's so much buzzing around. You know, our relationship is deep and dynamic, and thanks for I've known you my entire life, and we've gone through so many different things. So sitting here across the table from you today is a true pleasure. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on. I think it's awesome. Like, it's been a little while me bugging you. I'm like, hey, you have me on your show or what's going on?
Well, this is it, guys. Like, this is, we're laughing about this. And I got to tell you, what was really exciting was that Dave and I, we get together quite frequently. We have a meeting of the minds group, and I have no problem sharing that with the world because I think it's tremendously wonderful. So I'm here today with Dave because one of the things that we know about is that you surround yourself with great people and it helps amplify you and elevate you. And Dave, thank you for that because you've seen me go through a lot of ups and downs and you've supported me through it all. The point is, why I'm saying this to you is, I got a text message from Dave saying, hey man, when are we doing the show? And it was sort of a trigger to say, yeah, let's get our shit together and let's roll. So we're here today and there's so much I can talk to you about. And there's so much that, the listeners out there know or don't know, but we're going to get into that. And first, before we start that, I know an abundant amount of information about you, and where you are today wasn't always where you started. So really take us into how real estate became into your orbit. Take us through that journey.
It's an interesting journey because it's like, I never thought I would have been a realtor, to be honest with you. And I'll explain what happened. I really had a bad taste in my mouth with a lot of realtors to be like, and we talked about this before, but it was just like, yeah, like didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And I hate to say that, but like we've talked about this too. Yeah. So I guess it started like, let's talk about university, right? Like I had a scholarship to Wisconsin. It was a hockey scholarship there, like Division III. So they gave us a good amount of money. We only pay a little bit again there. It was great hockey. But while I was there, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I didn't know what I was going to do work. So I ended up getting a business degree in a minor in math. I had switched, try to bounce around playing pro a little bit. And it was just like, okay, didn't really work out, but I was still kind of lost. I'll be honest with you. I was like, I didn't really know my skill sets because throughout my life, me and you, as you know, we used to work with your dad. I used to be a goalie coach. I've always worked. I worked at, as a server. I've a bouncer. I did all of these jobs, but it wasn't like hockey was my thing and school. I was good at school. And after that, I didn't really know what my passion was. I knew I liked math, but what the hell I wanted to do. Right. So I remember after bouncing around, my dad came to me one day and said, man, he's like, either you go back to school or you start paying me room and board. I'm like, well, why would I want to start paying room and board at your dad's house? And I'm like, no, thanks. And I said, okay, we'll go back. And between my brother and my sister-in-law and I, we figured out like, hey, we'll do my MBA. And I did my MBA and I did that to get more clarity. It did help. Like the one thing I loved during my MBA was during my electives, I took like 6 marketing courses out of the 10 electives. Something about marketing and the dynamic and the creativity I really, really enjoy. Like I didn't really like finance much, even though I was good with math. I was good at it, but I didn't really love it, I did all that stuff. But I had a classmate, I remember she called me one day. She's like, hey, my dad's looking for, I know it's a long story, but this is where I actually got this out.
Yeah.
He's like, she calls me up one day. She's like, hey, my dad works for Toronto Hydro and he's looking for like basically newbies, somebody that he can mold, just good at math, good at easily to learn. Are you interested? It's only like a 3-month contract. I'm like, sure. I'm like, I have no idea right now. I'm back coaching hockey, which don't get me wrong. Like I was good at hockey, but it wasn't my passion. It was like, but I was really good at it. But I was like, fine. I was just keeping up. But I was like, okay. And then, so I wanted to work as a contractor and that 3-month contract ended up working to me 10 years. But I remember getting one of my first paychecks.
Okay.
And I said, there was no secret. I used to work for your dad. We used to get paid cash.
Yeah.
And I used to work at hockey school to get paid cash.
Sure.
And everything. So when I got my first paycheck, I'm like, where the fuck is all my money? He said, that's the first thing I was saying. I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, oh, my dad's like, like we never have to pay like there's CPP, there's, EI, all this other shit that went into it. I'm like, you look at it and I'm like, how the fuck do people live off of this? Like, this is ridiculous. And he's like, so he goes, and then I started like, and then for a gift, my brother and sister-in-law gave me a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is how everything started.
Okay.
And I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'm like, oh, buying properties, passive income, books changing your mindset about, what you consider an asset, what you consider a liability. And then I turn around and I look and I'm like, so basically what everything he's talking about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is what my dad's been doing for years, and Uncle Mario, our uncle's been doing too. And he's like, Brian, your dad didn't really get into as much the properties as Uncle Mario and my dad. So I went to my dad. He's like, you ready to learn, eh? And I bought with him. He helped me buy my first rental property, right? Which was like a weird experience, but it was a shitty experience because it was like, we bought this property in Roncesvalles. It was $6, which I still own to this day, but it was a piece of shit. Like it literally had asbestos in it. It was like falling apart. The tenants were like all disgruntled. It was basically like a baptism by fire, I call it, right? And it was just, I remember the top floor wasn't getting any water because the way that the plumbing was, it would T-split. And it was like, holy shit, this is not great. Right. And it was like, I was kind of to a point that, I'm like, I don't know, like I could see the passive income. And I was trying to sell it. So I hired a realtor and she was horrible. I've gone through so many bad realtors and she was one of them.
Okay. But hang on here for a second.
Horrible how? First, communication was terrible.
Okay.
And I didn't really text. The marketing non-existent. When I came to open houses, made me show up to open houses and talk to the clients about it too. Couldn't negotiate, trying to get me to get like a really low ball offer. Like it was just like going like, and just like almost like arguing with me about this. And say, no, I don't get to sell this price. I'm going to keep it. It still earns me money, right? Just not working on my side. Didn't give a shit. All she cared about was the paycheck. And I'm like, go fuck yourself.
And this is interesting, right? This is the first property you've owned. So you're still new to this. Yeah. You're working at Toronto Hydro at this point, right? Okay, so what happened? Now come back. Thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah. So what happened was I told her to go fuck herself. Excuse my language. I said, go fuck yourself. I'm like, I'm taking this property, give me my keys back, right? And then, my wife and I were ready to get married in 2008. We had this terrible tenant, which my dad actually got in there. That's another story in itself. But don't just take cash from somebody who gives you cash. This is my word of advice to my tenants is like, look up references, especially in this day and age. Long story short, one of these tenants was supposed to be a single mom. Supposed to be a single lady. All of a sudden I had a teenage son, which we didn't know about. The teenage son ended up having a girlfriend, which all started living in this 1-bedroom apartment basement. And all of a sudden she had this husband out of the blue. And all of a sudden she started bringing these old cars and started plugging in things into the electrical box. Eventually, guess what happened? We had an electrical fire. And I'm blaming them. That we can't pinpoint that it was their fault, but I 100% think it's their fault. But what happened at that point is where things were starting to change. We had bought a property with another realtor, which I fucking could not stand. Like he just did everything wrong. So my wife and I had bought a property during this time with an agent that didn't tell us about anything, what the expenses were, what our land transfer tax, how much the deposit was. He brought in this terrible home inspector, which wanted the business, didn't tell us anything was wrong with the property, went with a little notebook and just we weren't even there doing the home inspection. Negotiation was terrible. It just left us with such a bad taste in the mouth, right? Just horrible. There was no customer service. And it was just everything, things I talk about now is those kind of the two experiences I've had. And some with other agents along the way, I've had some bad ones, but it was just terrible. For example, most people know that you have to give a deposit when it comes to a negotiation, right? So if me and you get into an offer, we agree on a price of the sale. 5% of that, of what we're agreeing, so say it's $1 million, 5% is about $50,000, is due within 24 hours and it needs to be liquid. So it needs to be in your bank account, line of credit. It can't be in your TFSAs or RSPs because it might take a week or a month, whatever, to get to. Sure. He never told me. Offer was accepted. He's like, I need $25,000. I'm like, this is back 2007. I'm like, thank God I had it on my line. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I need that money today. I'm like, you never told me about this.
So no education.
Didn't tell me what my interest was. Didn't tell me I needed a lawyer. Didn't know how much lawyers cost. Didn't have any lawyers or anybody for me. It was just
transactional.
Yeah, very transactional.
And you're just another widget in the wheel.
Yeah. So during this time I'm going through this, all of a sudden I got a fire in the rental property. So didn't know what to do. My wife and I are strapped for cash and trying to figure out. And also we were able to get insurance money, thank God. While we did the insurance money, we looked at let's revamp the property, let's put some of our own money into, and let's get this property a better property that fix all the issues. And I was able to pull equity at that point. So my property value had increased. I was like, and I got good tenants in there because I put a good product forward. I was able to talk to the tenants and understand and feel for them. And it was it wasn't just get somebody in there so I can get money. It's no, I want the right people. Because at this point I had 6 available units. Everybody had to be in some sort of cohesion and like each other. And also my wife and I were doing it too. We wanted to make sure we had the right people in there. So we weren't getting calls at 2:00 in the morning that this person is. So this also changed my way of thinking.
One second. Let's pump the brakes here for a second. This is important. So now at this point in time, you've still got the first property, which is now burned down and being reconstructed. You've entered into the second property with your wife at this point in time. You've done some self-directed learning through the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you started to learn a little bit about that. You're still working in Toronto Hydro.
That's right.
Right. But you said something pretty magical there was you started to sort of evaluate who do I want the right people in these 6 units. And you started to, do your digging and sort of know the people there. What leads to that insight?
what happened was I was having some tenants that were arguing with each other in the middle of the night. And I was like, and I did, as a landlord, you don't want to be woken up at 3:00 in the morning saying this person's being an idiot.
Yeah, sure.
It was purely selfish in that kind of sense, because I wanted to make sure that you have the right person, but everyone was going to get along. So it mattered who you had in there. So it's all about personality, making sure personalities mesh.
So how did you do this? Like, what did you actually do?
So we had some open houses that were there too. I would like Natalie, my wife is a fantastic photographer, and she doesn't do it as much anymore, but she took all these amazing pictures. We promoted them. We said, come to us by. So we had everybody set up, and her and I were walking through and saying like, who liked what? And we saw some people talking with each other and getting along stuff too. And like, and they were giving us applications. So we knew that they would get along. So that's kind of how we did it in the first couple. We were lucky in that sense, because we actually had everybody kind of together, kind of was understood. Not everybody has a sixplex open the way we did there. Moving forward, now we kind of like not filter through, and like I sit there and talk with them. I do my own showings, and I get a feel for them.
Hang on, but at this point, you're not in the real estate.
No.
So you're still doing this as a homeowner, because
right.
You actually have interest to say this is going to make things easier holistically, not only for you.
That's right.
And your family selfishly, sort of selfishly, but it's not. It's also, you want to make sure you've got the right people surrounded by the right people.
Well, if you're happy in your home, you're going to stay there longer, and I'm going to make more money.
Right. So you had, at this point in time, you had a different real estate agent on board.
No, I was doing everything myself.
Oh, interesting. So now that's interesting too, because now you're like, fuck the first guy, fuck the second person. I'm going to do this myself. Yeah. And at the same time, this is not your career. Your career is still.
I'm an analyst. You're an analyst. I was a treasury analyst.
Yeah.
In finance. Not enjoying what I was doing. I actually but what I started to know was like, when I was doing these, talking to people, it was like, I was selling it. I liked it. You know what I mean? I was like talking to people, and I was like, I kind of got a little bit of a high from talking with people and kind of selling property and bringing people together. And I really enjoyed that. The second aspect I liked was like figuring out how equity worked.
Okay.
And I was like, pulling equity. Okay, to do this. I was able to renovate my other property, pulling equity, doing this. And I remember having a conversation at your dad's cottage. And I remember I was explaining to our friends, including your brother. And you remember that, right? So having a couple of drinks, we're explaining how equity worked and how we're able to pull it on. There are tax benefits on that too. Your brother ended up buying proproperties. Yep. Our friend James Owen bought a property. Some other people bought property. Yep. Since that time, I was helping other people get into rental properties. Yep. And it was kind of like, oh.
You were educating people because you actually gave a shit.
Right.
You actually gave a shit.
Yeah. It was fun. And for me, it was fun. It was like, why are we not all doing this? Why are we not helping each other? And I was also saying, like, I wasn't telling people how to, like, for example, with your brother, I didn't make any money. There's no way me making money. I was an analyst. So I was like, there's not like, I wasn't doing it for,
self-gain. You're sharing knowledge, which is, you've experienced the flip side of it, which is when people didn't give a shit.
Oh, it's horrible.
Right. So you're thinking, look, I'm going to share the knowledge that I have. Mm-hmm. And if it serves you well, awesome. Okay. So now you're doing this. Toronto Hydro still in the equation. Bring it through that.
So I liked my job at one point from about 2006 to 2008. I was wheeling and dealing with other banks, and that was kind of cool. Like basically real estate. It was just like, how moving money. And then in 2008, we had purchased something we shouldn't have purchased. So my job got changed from 2008 to say 2012, where my whole job was a phone call.
Okay.
And then in 2012, our work had to, basically, the Toronto Hydro had a fight with the Energy Board, and they were both trying to pull their bluff, and said to basically, Toronto Hydro said, well, if you don't do this, we're going to fire 20% of our workforce. Well, they fired 20% of our workforce, including my VP and including our lawyer and all these people. All of a sudden, my job started turning, and they started handing me more jobs. I'm like, okay, this person's you can do this now. I'm like, but I'm not an accountant by trade. Like, oh, it's okay, you can do it. I'm like, okay. And then another person left. I went through 7 bosses in a year. 7 in a year.
But you don't even 7
in a job I didn't even like.
You're a job, like, 7 bosses in a year. Like, you don't even get to know the person before it's their own.
No, it was ridiculous. Oh, this person's doing. Some of the people were internally, so I knew them. So we kind of, but all of a sudden I have to report to them. And then they're like, okay, we're reporting. Okay, you're no longer reporting this. Okay, we're hiring this person. And long story short, they brought in somebody to kind of I don't know, just for my job too. Like, I wasn't excelling at my job. I was doing it okay. It was fine. I was kind of and it wasn't doing anything wrong to get fired, but it wasn't either but it wasn't my passion. So it wasn't oh, you need to find that. And it wasn't
You were at the good enough scale. You weren't below line. You weren't below. You were good enough.
I was average. You know what I mean? It was enough. There's a couple of things. And
no, but you didn't like, oh my God, he's a rock star. Oh my God, he's underperforming. You were right there. You were
right there. Yeah, I was, kind of going through, and you just kind of go through the motions, right? And at that time too, my wife already I helped her get started her own business. So I was getting all the benefits for both of us. It just didn't make sense. So then in 2014, I got packaged up. One of the new bosses came in. Little by little, we all got packaged out. I probably knew my number was, and I went home. I was so happy. I had a cigar and a scotch.
It's like, there's a story. That's like almost, it's saying like, the best thing that could happen to you was here's your package.
It was fucking unreal. Like I remember because, so two things happened, right? So the guy, so my boss came, he goes, hey, come see me in the office around 10 o'clock. I'm like, okay. I walk in and said, HR, I'm like, oh, she let me go. He's like, oh, it has nothing to do with your performance. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like, okay. And to read through, I'm like, okay, so what can I just, looking at me, and I look at the HR girl, she's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's kind of, don't get me wrong, it's kind of a shot in the nuts.
Of course.
Because it's like, oh, somebody doesn't want you. It's like, that girl that you never really wanted, that really liked, all of a sudden doesn't like you anymore. I'm like, wait, well, what do you mean you don't like me? What?
You're breaking up. Yeah,
like, now I like you. I'm like, I like you because you don't like me. But that kind of faded pretty quickly. And I was like, okay. And then they walked to my desk and said, listen, I got some private stuff on here. I'm like, you can watch it. Just download it. Just got music and stuff too. Can I do that? And she the whole time she goes, are you sure you're okay? So I'm like, yeah. I'm fine. I'm like, I kind of knew I thought I was going to get fired in February, to be honest, because I saw that it's happening. And I said to my brother, we're having a cigar. That's a common theme. We were out in Blue Mountain. I remember walking his dog at the time. I told him all the stuff that was happening with the boss. He's like, oh yeah, you're going to get cancer. And I'm like, I know it's funny. I'm like, oh, we'll get packaged out. We'll just figure it out from that point. But it didn't happen in February. So I'm like, okay, so I thought about it. But so anyway, I was kind of prepared.
It was in your orbit. First of all, I mean, look, there's another conversation another time is that there's an organization that just sort of didn't have a temperature reading and went through so many transitional stages. They were sort of finding their own bearings, right? You get packaged out and the immediate thing is like, holy fuck, what now? It's like, no, man, like I've been mentally prepared for this.
Yeah, I was prepared for it. We went to home. I had I saw my kids. I was happy. It was just like, and I remember calling my wife and I said, hey, she's like, okay. She goes, I just got that call. She's like, okay, I'll see you home soon. Yeah, I'll see you home soon. Went home, had a cigar. I remember playing with the girls and stuff too. And then my buddy called me for work. He goes, hey, are you okay? I said, why? What's going on? He's like, oh, we just got the news. He goes, we have girls crying on the floor. They're so mad. And I'm like, tell them I'm okay. Everything is just going to be okay. And it was funny because I didn't know this is the long story short where I'm coming into things because my head just started flooding with things I could possibly want to do.
Yeah.
And I remember my wife was just like, you can't do this all day because I was out in front of the computer all day, like 14, 15 hours. Like I felt like it was in a battered wife syndrome. We call it at the beginning. You don't realize how bad it was until you're in a bad relationship and then you get out and then you feel free.
Okay.
Well, I remember sitting in bed and my brain was just actually working again. It was just like all this stuff. You can do this and that. What about this? And pulling things all together. It was just like, whoa. But it was unreal what was happening. And I came to this idea and I called my dad. I said, listen, I've been helping people get into rental properties. I also been doing property management. My dad had a bunch of rental properties and stuff too. I said, listen, I'm like, your properties are going to shit. You're not managing them.
Yeah.
Because then we're sitting in one here that my office now is one you never renovated and stuff too. I'm like, and he was getting stressed out too. And I said, listen, why don't I take over? Here's what I want to do. I want to use your business and let me do some renovations. I want to use it as a new business. I'm going to call it property manager and find it, fix it, run it. We help you find properties and make them into rental properties, fix it if they're not it's a sixplex or triplex and it's not one. I've been working with so many different good contractors. I've already vetted them. I can get people that I know to fix up or see we can turn one into which is not a rental property into like multi-units. And then if you're happy with it at the end of the year, I can do property management for you too for like 6 months. And that was the idea. And when we were running through this,
I remember this. I was going to pull the handbrake here because I remember this. I was sitting in, it was me and you, maybe my brother was there, and maybe somebody else. We were at St. Phil's Bakery, and you had this idea of what was called the property manager or whatever it was called. Yeah, and it was just like, fuck, this is the moment I've been waiting for because your framework was, and this is really important for people to hear, is that you'd already been doing this, where you started to educate yourself. You've taken us through the stories of what you've already been up to. And it was like, I'm already doing this. So how do I turn this sort of interest and sort of passion into a business? And one thing that I remember you always say is like, I know enough people, I'm going to, leverage and utilize the networks I already have, whether that be contractors. And that's really important because sometimes we get into conversations like, I'm not going to call this guy, even though he's my friend and he does this. No, you have the exact opposite approach. We're going to develop great relationships and I'm going to lean into the people I know, and hold them accountable to higher standards to say, like, let's do good fucking work together.
100%.
So that we can all flourish together. So like that's a vivid memory. I wanted to just come into that.
So one of my knacks is, and people I didn't realize at the time, was always thinking how, when I meet somebody, how can I utilize your talents to benefit other people as well as yourself?
Right.
And I've always making people mesh together. And it was never like nothing to do with money. I never thought about making money about it. It was like, and again, it's still to this day, it's never been about that, right? And I keep explaining that to people. It's not about making money. It's bringing people together.
And the money organically happens. This
100%. 100%. So I had this business plan, and I have this great financial planner of mine, a friend of mine. I send over, he goes, I love the business plan. And he goes, we went through, he's like, yeah. He goes, so he helped me someday. He helped me like kind of jig it. He goes, the only issue now is like, we need to figure out how to monetize it. Okay. The one glaring thing that we kept seeing over and over again to the monetization was like the realtor. Fuck. Who do I give this to? And they weren't the only two bad realtors. I've had so many bad realtors going through this shit. I'm like, I can't trust anybody with this stuff. I can't. And at this time, I did not want to be a realtor because I've had so many. They'll only give you 2 transactions. There's many more that happen that just left really like lack of education, lack of answering people's calls, not really feeling as if they're lying to you half the time. I felt like a used car salesman. Like,
so in your mind, I'm not going to subscribe to that narrative and that stereotype of a realtor because you had a bad image in your mind.
Right.
Like, this is a fucking, you like that used salesman. I mean, that's a good.
Yeah, it was used car. It was almost worse than a used car salesman. I just felt like it was a game being used. Because I'm like, why would I benefit? My job's like, so I have contractors, everybody I trust. The one person I didn't really trust is like, I might have my brother-in-law I trust a little bit. He was also sometimes hard to get a hold of. But other than him, like there was nobody else I would have trusted. I'm like, well, if I'm going to have all this business, I can't just filter to one realtor. That's it. I just want, what happens if he gets busy? What happens? Like, so I'm like, so I had this idea. I'm like, fine, I'm going to do my real estate license. Right. And I'm going to do my real estate license and I'll just use my real estate license for the property man.
Right.
In the meantime, I said, I'll have a book because I'll take over my dad's properties. Back to that conversation, he allowed me to take over. I started already before I started doing all this, started renovating properties and using them like, okay, here's what we can do to your property.
Again, leveraging the knowledge you had and saying, let's utilize the equity and build and
so my dad was excited about it too. Unfortunately, he passed away 5 days before my first exam. And things just like, I didn't know what to do. And I remember talking to our aunt and she's like, you don't have to do the exam and stuff. Cause like you're emotionally exhausted. You're drinking, you're doing all this other shit too. And I remember, I said, my dad wanted me to do this exam. This is what we want to do. And I remember going into the study. I got 100% the first exam. I'm like, okay, maybe this is something I should really look into. I went and took the second course. Yeah, still trying to figure out the property there, still do the property management, watching over the properties, all that stuff too. And the teacher kept asking me questions throughout the course. I helped teach the course. I'm like, you're the realtor. You've been doing this for 20 years. And I put up my hand. I'm like, that's actually not. And I was correcting her on a lot of things. And she's like, she goes back, she goes, you're right. So by the end of the course, I was helping the students. Some of them were coming and talking to me for the answers, not her. And she would, during exams, come and say, am I doing this right? And I'm like, thanks, correcting her. Again, still kind of push back. I'm like, do I really want to get involved in this? Like with this, if this is the level of people that I'm not really a realtor and I'm teaching realtors, been in the business for 20 years. Again, so my mentality was still like, I don't want to be a realtor.
This is interesting because, subconsciously or consciously, you have this sort of attachment to that stigma. Fuck no, yet life, the universe, God, whatever you still want to say, is sending you sort of signals to say,
God's a big part of
shit.
It. Yeah. The way that, like, if I can tell you the whole journey of everything happened, then this is not coincidence. Yeah. God has a big part of it too. I'm a big believer in that. Even how my dad died, all that kind of stuff too. It's a big, there's a lot of what you can call cosmic or God energy in there too. Anyway, by the time the third exam rolled around, I came home one day and I'm taking courses. I like to take courses. The way I learn in class. Like, sure, I'm not somebody who can read a book and then absorb information. I learn when I'm in class. I talk with people. That's how I absorb. Yeah. So I remember coming home to my wife and I was like, hey, like, I think I should be a realtor. She's like, took you long enough. And because it was like, okay, I think I could do this. And again, the funny thing I keep saying about this, I had no idea how much realtors make.
Okay.
Never crossed my mind.
So it was never monetary. Again, we're not talking
I had no fucking clue how much realtors made. I remember seeing the first class and this one fat guy at the back, he was huge. He was a monster. He's a football player. Like, I think he was like 7 foot tall. He's about 350 pounds. And we're going through like, why do you want to do this? And I remember they came to our table and said, well, I told him about the property manager. What is this? I remember this guy and still remember the vividly. He goes, I just want to make a lot of money. And we're all like, like, that was his motivation being a realtor, making a lot of money. I'm like, I guess he knew how much realtors made. And he was a young guy. And I was like, but again, this might sound naive, but I had no idea. I just didn't know. No idea. So again, when I said to my wife, I think I'd be a realtor. Okay. So she's like, yeah, it took you long enough. I'm like, so I ended up, finishing the courses. Then I actually started caring about like making sure, dude, like, it wasn't like I didn't care before, but now it was really kind of like, okay, what do I do in my business? And I started taking the steps to do the business. And I guess it wasn't until I made like my second or third sale. I remember I made it was for, it was like 2.5% on a $600,000 purchase, or like you're taking home $16,000, or like, holy shit.
Yeah, because at this point you had already partnered with a firm, right?
Yeah. So for me, it was like my whole motivation for being a realtor was I just needed to make the same amount of money as I made as an analyst in order to keep my family afloat.
Of course.
Right. That was my motivation. My motivation was,
here's a number I got to hit, keep everybody status quo life. Like, let's just.
Yeah. Exactly. And when I made the first property at that point, it was like, for 20, I remember like, your property is actually the first one I think sold, your wife's property.
Right. Yeah. That
uncle took a chance. So it was great. I doubled in. It was like, oh, okay. But I didn't really get a good taste of it because it was kind of happened so fast until I got that one, that one for 600,000. I was like, oh my God. So if I do this certain amount of times, I'm like, that's all I need to do to make sure my family's safe. Sure. That's what the bells went on. And after that, kind of like, like I remember I'd hired a coach, and I think coach.
Hang on, look, stop there for a second. That's monumental. You hired a coach. Tell me about like why hire a coach?
Well, because it's like I was good at a lot of things, but I'm like, so the funny thing about real estate is that you take all the courses. The courses teach you how to not get sued. I keep saying that. Like that's their whole thing. Their whole thing is you need to put things in course and make sure you're protecting your clients and yourself, so you don't get sued.
Good. I need to know that stuff. Cool.
Nobody tells you how to make money. Nobody tells you how to run a business. Nobody tells you the education you need to give to your clients. Nobody tells you call. Nobody tells you anything. They just kind of say, here's your license. Now you go in the world and make some money, or don't make money. We don't give a shit because you still have to pay the dues. We've done our job by making sure you don't get sued. If you keep your license, great. They don't make any more money off you.
So when do you get to coach? Like,
and so I went through, and so the first few months I was kind of like trying to figure out, and look at them. One of the reasons why I partnered with my brokerage was they're great at education. They're Royal Lepage signature, fantastic brokerage. I'm still with that brokerage. I love the family and the way that they're run, right? So when I said I was going to go with them, the first thing they did is like, okay, we have this course you need to take. And so in that course, we have this teacher named Sam Hughes, a great friend of mine now too. Sam was teaching us kind of what a coach is doing. She's taken over. She used to be an agent herself. She's telling us kind of like new agents, like what you need to be doing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Never thought of that. I'm like, I never thought of this approach to it. Cause it just, again, she's like, you got to treat like this way. And so I started taking some of her things, and I was like, but I noticed, I'm like, okay, but I need to systematically figure out as a business, not just kind of do it ad hocly here and there. Like, just kind of like, how do I figure this out? And I'd done some transactions, but I'm like, but I had nothing in the pipeline. I'm like, what am I doing? And the brokerage was, they were constantly bringing us coaches. And I this one coach was coming in, and I was like, I signed up for the course. I said, okay, great. Let me take this course. I liked the course so much. He went grassroots, explaining A to B, how to get clients, how to run your business, business planning, all that kind of stuff too, which I've done as an analyst, but you don't realize that you have to do it for all successful businesses, right? Especially if you are for yourself, because nobody, like when you're at Toronto Hydro, they're like, or say another corporate business, like your bonuses are based on your performance. So you're going to have to come up with goals and all those kinds of things too. When you're on your own, there's nobody after you.
Nobody tells you that shit, right? Like, hey, look, I got a great idea. I want to start a business. Cool. Right. Well, okay, cool. I got this nice little idea. Now what?
Yeah. Well, so the good thing was when I did my MBA, I took an entrepreneurship class, which kind of like said it because I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I saw all the families of too. And my dad also too, after I did my MBA, was working, and I always come back to my dad, but he was very instrumental in my thought process. And I remember one day he was at my house and he came to me and he goes, what the hell are you doing? I said, what do you mean? He's like, I can spend money for you to go to school, but not to work for somebody else. I'm like, Dad, I got an MBA. I got a business degree. I got 2 business degrees. Like, what do you expect? They teach you how to be an employee. Like, that's not what I wanted for you. I never thought of it. I'm like, but like, listen, I make good money. And at this point, it was just like, it's stable. And like, it was like more of a, better, like the, just kind of the humble, like getting beat up all the time, cause it's just like, okay, like didn't think of anything better for myself in that kind of sense. Just just kind of going through the motions, didn't realize that there was something better for myself.
Well, and I want to just put a pin because that sort of struck a chord when you said that. I love that because it takes sort of that, kick in the ass, 2x4 to the head to say, the fuck are you doing this for, right? Like our school is, and we're not going to go up this tangent, but our school is designed you to sort of go work for somebody else. They give you all the great tools, knowledge, whatever it is. And then it's like, okay, I've got all this. I'll go work for somebody else. When, you had all these things sort of lined up in your head to say, I can do that, I can do that, I can do this, but I never thought of, because it's on the other side of that insight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they teach you how to climb the ladder. No one ever teaches how to own the ladder.
So you do. So what happens to the property manager along this way?
So I'm still running for the family. I decided to, because it's like, so I hired the coach. I realized how much time I had to do this, doing the coaching.
Sure.
Prospecting and working on the business. And I'm like, property management stuff is just like, well, the property manager is just terrible. Like I've never been a property manager. No one ever calls you and says, hey, you're doing a great job.
Right. Right.
Hey, my toilet's busted. Hey, this neighbor's, playing music at 3:00 in the morning. Hey, the show's not, it's never like, nobody calls you pat you on the back. So it's never like rewarding. I actually feel I feel bad for property managers. And so it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to do it for the family. I'm going to see, as I'm doing this, I'll get my licensing. Maybe I'll still run it. But I realized that then the property manager just I put it to the side because it's like, no, I can help more people by being a realtor or getting them in there. And just instead of me managing the property, like that'll take away from me helping people. Instead of me getting business, I can help them better as a realtor than I could as a property manager because my passion was there.
And you said something, you're still looking out for people. You're saying, how can I best be of service to somebody?
Well, you've been to some of my parties. You've been my clients. Yeah. Like we have people here too. So I do like this manicures, mimosas for Mother's Day.
Right.
And my wife's friend who does my party planning, she's like, I have like 20 something women, or she's like, they all just want to make sure you're here. They didn't want to leave. We thought they were going to come and get their manicures and leave. She's like, they were here for all 3 hours. Nobody was leaving. She's like, that's a testament to you. Like my clients, I treat like family. And most of them become family. They start off as clients, you don't know them, but then once you get to know me and stuff too, you become part of the family.
But this is what we're talking about. This is why you fucking flip the script on doing what you're not. It's never transactional for you. You really,
100%.
You look, I remember a story, and I don't know when this came into play, but I remember when, the girls were small, and I think you had just started out, and I remember a story saying you're prospecting, and one way you were prospecting was you were literally going door to door, knocking on people's doors with your daughter, saying, "Hey, David Cinelli here. If I live in the area," you were introducing yourself humbly to people, right?
Yeah.
And to some people,
with the wagon, sometimes they were just staying in the wagon. Sometimes they got bored after a couple hours.
Because you get 2 girls, and some people look at that and go, "That's fucking weird," right? And what I want to identify that is you're doing the hard work. You're never sitting back going,
well, I was responsible, but it was also for a cause. We were doing it I wanted to do a sick kids garage sale in our neighborhood and also introduce myself as a realtor.
Sure.
So it wasn't, again, not transactional. All the money we made on that thing went to sick kids. Again, we have family members, including my brother, our cousins that were born with spina bifida. We know the importance of that for the sick kids. And that was my first time. Like, it's a good way of meeting people. And that's why I had the kids with me, and it was cute. Right. So I was like, but I also want to introduce myself. Hey, I'm like, you might know me as a neighbor, but I'm a realtor too. But that was, again, it wasn't just for me to make money off of it. Oh, this house. I'm like, hey, no, I'm actually here.
You're creating connection.
I'm creating connection. But again, it was also to help people because I want to help sick kids. So I think $500 or $600 that day we donated to sick kids for, just for me knocking on doors. We had a little like garage sale. It was cool.
Yeah. So like all of this is happening, and sort of the overarching thing that comes back is the burning question, because somebody's out there listening going, why bother? Like, why go through all this? And if you could sort of pin that to one message, what do you say?
Why bother? Why do what I do?
Yeah. Like, why do it differently?
Because I hated the way I felt when I was on the other side.
Period.
Done. When I switched in that third course, I made a vow. And I said this to my wife, and I came home. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the best fucking way I possibly can that people can help or refer me, and they're going to love real estate. My mission is to change people's mind about the way that the real estate agents are seen. Is the mind. I want to flip the script on being seen as a used car salesman, as opposed to being somebody who cares and is out there to look out for you. That's been my goal since day one.
Well, that's huge. I mean, that's the why you get out of bed. That's why it makes a fucking difference.
It's because huge.
We're on the other side. And this is the biggest thing where we get into business and go, I'm going to go, see what everybody else is doing and do it that way. No, look, I'm challenging to say, do it. Look at what everybody else is doing and do it fucking differently.
Way different. Yeah.
Feel what it like, that part of the reason I'm here today doing what I'm doing is because I saw something different, because I saw it different. And we're having similar conversations. We're saying, you were on the other side and it goes, this is awful. This is awful. It feels shitty. It feels transactional. I feel used. I feel like a fucking widget.
Disgusting. I felt dirty.
Yeah.
Dirty. It wasn't a good feeling. And even after you buy a house and stuff too, you're just like, you felt like nothing. It was just like, did I get taken advantage of? It's like, it wasn't, sometimes it wasn't my own agents, how the other agents were reacting too. Well, you got to remember too. So we do open houses. We deal with stuff too. Like we met other agents and they were just, I just didn't be associated with these people. So a little bit about what I do. The first thing I do is if you have a conversation with me, so if you send me a buyer, I talk to my family, friends, my contacts, say if you have anybody looking for real estate, let me know, that's kind of things, and make sure it's a company I want to help. They come to me as a buyer. We do a buyer consultation. You come to the office or we do a Zoom. I give you pamphlets. I give you information. And I said to them, listen, at the end of the day, even if you don't work with me, you're going to have all this information. The other agents will benefit from this. Again, I would love for you to work with me. I'm giving you all this information, but you're now going to enjoy now you know when things are due, what conditions are, what every step of the process, and you get a booklet to go home with you to reference back that has all this information, and all it costs you about an hour of your time. And that's it. And I would love for you to work with me at that point. But if you don't, I get it. Like, fine. You have to also make sure you mesh and you got to do what you got to do. And it's happened before where I've had clients come in here too, and they end up working with their cousin, their friend. They're like, great. But I give them education. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel, I'm not going to call them back. Okay, you owe me for my time. Like, no, again, it's part of the process. It's something that I didn't have. Right.
So for me, it goes back to the education piece you talk about, but it also go back to your why. Like, you want to do it differently. You're educating people, and yeah, I'd love for you to work with me. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, at least I feel
good,
fulfilled that I've given you knowledge, information, right, so that you can do your own, because somebody didn't do that for me and you saw the impact downstream.
Yeah.
So I see all this. I mean, the burning question sort of shows up for me, and I wonder if it's just me or if it's circulating through other people's heads. Doesn't it get exhausting to go through all this?
Sometimes. As you know, I do a lot of videos.
Yeah.
I do a lot of education, going back to those things. It's like, some people are like, why do you give so much information? Don't you want people to come work? I'm like, no, I want to build trust. In the beginning, it was getting exhausting to do these videos because it was like, I was trying to do them every day. And then but you had to figure out a schedule, then also try to be more real. It can't be fake. I'm like, so that was taking a lot of energy out of me trying to be somebody I wasn't. Now, most of the time, when you see my videos, it's usually done in one shot. Like, that's it. Like, I do my videos, I get my information up there too, and I try to keep it short and sweet, but try to. So it also gives you energy and stuff too that way. It does. But the thing is, you also, as much as you love what you do and it gives you energy, you still need to take time for your family and friends, and you need to set up, like, last couple of years have been hard, but we were setting up vacations just for that reason, get burned out. But when you take 2-3 weeks off and you come back and you're just like, when I'm away, I wasn't like, I still love what I'm doing. I still love talking. Like, you just get that energy. Like, it's like, good for a couple of days, but no, the energy still burns. So you get tired for a couple of days. Like, Christmas, like now I'm looking like, trying to relax for about a week or so, but I know I won't. So I'll be tired for a day, but there are certain days you just kind of have to take the foot off the gas. What I've started doing now, I used to be always on call. I used to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I used to go to bed around midnight and stuff too. And I was always on call messaging. I can't do that anymore. And that was burning me.
Sure.
So I wake up around 6:30, work out, do all my things in the mornings, and I start my prospecting, but I also try to shut off my phone at 10 o'clock.
Beautiful. So I hear so many different things there. I mean, the last piece that Super saying is where you've acknowledged that in order for you to show up as the best version of yourself, or just show up with that same intensity, you need to look after Dave first. And this is the biggest thing people forget, is that if we don't look after ourselves, you're of less service. You're no good to somebody else. How can you if you're not physiologically set, psychologically set, reset, refreshed, you're going to show up very differently, right? We all know it. If I'm hungry, and, my kids say something to me, what they turn around and say, hey, you're pretty grumpy. Why don't you go eat something? Thank you. Because it takes courage for your balls to say that from a kid, but adults, we all always say that. But the thing is, you're looking saying, I need to sleep. I'm going to get my body moving, my blood flowing, and then I'm going to show up.
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. It's funny. There's a realtor local. She's been pretty big in this area and stuff too. But it's funny. It's like, anyway, she does her own thing. But one thing on her billboards it says is, she goes, I know, I'm the realtor that never sleeps. And I talk to my clients like, I don't want that realtor that never sleeps. You know the mistakes she probably makes because she doesn't sleep. Like, Is that something you really want to advertise? I never sleep. I'm like, yeah, like the people that don't sleep, it's not somebody I want to work with. I want to make sure my realtor is well rested, knows what he's doing. I think it's a bad business model saying that. So I understand what she's trying to say. So she's always there for your business, but it doesn't come across that way.
Yeah, it's not right or wrong. It's a thing that makes you think, right? Because, look at the things you talk about. You talk about education. You still have coaches today. I know that because you vividly talk about that. Like that takes.
And I also coach other people. I mentor people as well.
Yeah. And when we talk about how you do differently, we can peel into that. Your social media stuff is very different. It's not like, hey, look at this property. Hey, yes, it's that's there, but there's also right? It's here's the market updates, and here's your motivational Mondays, and you do Wednesdays.
So home tip Tuesdays. Wednesdays with my wife we do Stagers Corner. Thursdays is like a Cinelli chat where I kind of just talk about kind of things that are on my mind. It's not always real estate related because there's just things that happen in the world that just kind of do that. And then Fridays I do, I used to do real estate education Friday. And then I had my Ariana, one of my buying agents on me that was like, ask. Now we've switched it to, real estate questions, right? Saturdays I do a cat day because what I do is I love cats. So cats, especially so I live in Etobicoke, we want to give back to the community. So there's no reason. So my assistant and I, so she picks the cats and she promotes a cat every Saturday to get adopted. Again, we don't make money off it. The Humane Society, they appreciate it. They never come up. They never asked us to do that. But it's something that's like, listen, I'm like, these cats need a home. Why not promote them? I like cats over too. So we started that. And then I started doing Ask David on Sundays. I used to do Julia was my one of my buying agents. She's going to be my assistant as well. She's been more busy. So I just started doing that. And once she wants, we can do Ask Julia again. And then we start doing that. And then, so it's like, it's a whole cycle. It's like we systematically have something set up every single week and it's consistent. So the other thing is being consistent every day. So as you notice, I'm saying too, it's not all about real estate. Yeah, I'm throwing in this stuff too. A lot of that comes back to the real estate stuff. We'll talk about it too, but it's just, we're noticing it's like, I hate Instagrams or things that when it's just real estate.
Right.
Or if it's just a house, like, look what I sold. Look at me. Look how great I am.
Yeah. Beat on your chest, say eagle, 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 right? So when you do all that stuff, what's what's your philosophy behind social media? How do you utilize that? Why bother?
Yeah. So it was funny. My cousin Rosie called me yesterday and she's like, she had a friend of hers was moving in from Sudbury and she's like, wasn't sure. Like she called me, she goes, you saw a house in Sudbury. I'm like, well, I have friends that do that too. And she's like, well, she was trying to explain who I was. She goes, just look at her social media. Tell me what you think. And it's funny because that's why I use social media as a warm introduction to people. That's why I use it for education. I help other realtors a lot. I get a ton of questions from other realtors all the time. And then people in the industry too. Like people outside the industry too. Like today I had a phone call with one of my exterminators too. And he was just like, hey, where'd you get these videos? I'm like, here's my guy. Like ask him questions. Like, here's kind of what I paid. Here's what you're looking for. You can do this on your own. You can do that. I was just trying to help him. Again, I'm just trying to help him to figure out here's what I'm doing up there. Like, you'd be surprised how many realtors actually ask me questions and give them all information and how none of them follow up on it. Like 0 people. So it's like, I'll give you you ask me, I give you tons and tons of information, but what you do with it, it's up to you.
Right.
That happens a lot too. So I'm trying to help as many people as I possibly can. And that's what I use my social media for. It's a platform where I give my number, call me, text me.
You're very open about it. Hey, listen, I'm here to help. Right?
I'm here to help. I've always said that. And some people think it's like, is that a shtick? I'm like, it's not a shtick. It's not a hook to get in. Like, it's absolutely not. It's not. And it's like, and sometimes my wife will look at me and she's like, you're helping something. That person's going to screw you over. It's happened before. I've got screwed. I'm like, yeah, I know. But karma's a bitch. You know what I mean? I can't, something you remember the people that screw you over, but it doesn't mean you stop who you are.
No. Look, and I love that you say the karma's a bitch, because when it comes to something we were talking about before we pushed the record button today, and it was a wonderful metaphor. It was a glass full of water where you had said, look, there's an old adage or an old philosophy that I'm not going to fucking share any information. I'm going to take it to my grave, and that serves nobody well. I'll take that information to your grave because, it's like, if I give away my trade secrets, then, there's less water in the glass for me.
So as I said, because I was looking at my glass of water and I have ran into the people this way. And I'm like, if I help you, that means I have to take an ounce out of my water, which means I have 1 ounce less to drink. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. By me giving you everything that's in my glass, you get 10, 50 fold. It's like, it just, but again, you should, the reason, but the other thing, the philosophy is you shouldn't be looking to keep constantly filling your glass. Just, you should be giving it away. It's the same thing with money. If you notice people with money, the ones that are like, if you give other people money and they're like, it always comes back to you. If your soul thing was like, because then the control, if you just worry about money and you just, in your mind, and all you're worried about, like, you'll never grow.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if it begins and ends with money, it's going to be a short-lived fucking life.
The first question I ask when somebody wants to join my team, why do you want to do this? And if they say, I want to make a lot of money, I say, there's the front door. You can do so many other things to make a fucking ton of money. You're competing with 60,000 realtors every time you go for a job. Think about that. So if you go for a job, I don't know, remember our jobs back in the day when you worked at, in Oz and stuff too. Say you had in your applicant for a job, you might be one of 5 people,
sure.
Maybe one of 20, maybe one of 500. Every time I'm up for a buyer or seller, I'm up against 60,000 other realtors. If your sole purpose is just to make money and that's your why, get the fuck out of my office.
Yeah.
You can do so many other things. You're competing against so many other people you can make money at. But if that's all you want to do is make money, this is not the career for you. Because remember, I never knew how much money I was going to make. I know, and again, I still don't know. I use it as a metric for me now,
sure,
to figure out for my goals,
sure,
right? And I set a certain goals. I always try to set them higher and stuff too. Like this year, it was kind of like, it was the market has changed, all those stuff too. And I still did very well. It's like, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like, that wasn't my whole thing. It wasn't just like, I need to make this amount of money to make myself feel happy.
Well, hang on a second, because this is super important, right? Where I want to pivot here quickly, where the economy does a very big downturn, especially in the real estate market. Yeah. And it would have been really easy to pull back and stop doing some of the things you did, right? Even though you had, arguably less income and everything, and all the financial metrics were sort of not where they were. Instead of saying, I'm not going to do event 1, 2, or 3, you actually dug in deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm starting my own podcast too. I'm spending a shitload of money. I'm spending more money.
We're talking about, not only the social media presence and everything else you do for the community, but you also do some big events. You talked about that, the mimosas and manicures. You do
the cigar night for the dads.
Cigar night.
Scotch night. Sorry.
Scotch night, right? Which is an appreciation thing. You do a big event at Christmas time, an appreciation thing. Yeah. You do another one at Easter time. You do a whole bunch of things where it could...
Family day.
And those are huge things that cost like thousands of dollars that like, holy shit. So many organizations go through, well, peel back, right? We're not going to do this. It's been a shitty year, so nobody's going to sort of benefit. Instead, you're still doing it. I actually give a shit. And this is coming out of your pocket, right? And what ends up happening, I believe this, that compounds and builds your philosophy of like, you surround yourself with great people and you still do what you do. You still show up and you still educate and and it makes people say like, fuck, man, I want to call Dave, or fuck. Like, you talk about, hey, you had Rosie call the other day and say, do you do this? Your answer was, the one real estate agent you could have said, sure, I'll drive to Sudbury. You said, no, I don't. But I have partners in the industry. How do you have partners? Because you're a great human being that actually cares about other people. Yeah. Right. So this is huge.
Yeah. It was funny too. I went to that 40th birthday the other day and I sat beside them and and it was, they're clients of mine. And they became like some family, like literally. Sure. I've seen like 2 of the kids being born. Like remember one of them, like we were walking out of the house and the baby was going to be born. A couple of days later, it was funny. So I sat down, they're like, hey, so we're saying how we knew my client. I said, I'm a realtor. They're like, oh, you're the one that gives all the way, gives the cookies at Christmas time and on your birthdays because you get birthday cookies and stuff too. And it's like, yeah, don't forget. I put you in, and they're like, we don't want to, like, she goes, I'm going to sell a house. She goes, but when Mona was telling me about, how much shit you do for them and how like you're constantly engaging, again, like you're remembering their birthdays and all that stuff too. She's like, I want to work with somebody like you. Everybody at the table already knew about me just from just a small gesture. In my opinion, it's like, it's your birthday, you're a client. You should get a little something. And they haven't transacted in like 5-6 years. But every year, well, you're still part of the family. Unless you do something like, if obviously if you use another agent, then you're not my client anymore. So then you're off the list. So, that's happened a few times. Some people get their license. It's a moving, breathing thing too. But if you're loyal with me and you want to work with me and stuff too, I think that's fair.
Of course, I want to pivot this up because this is real for me too, right? It's those instances and those moments create memories. They create experiences for me. And I want to share one that I don't remember what it was. I think it was maybe you had sent cookies or something, and maybe it was cookies, maybe it was something different. I don't remember what the exact thing was because you sent some stuff at Halloween. You do all these little things where they're just special things. Moment was, this package shows up at our front door, and kids, right? Kristen's 9 and Cassandra's 6, and super excited. They rip this thing open and they see, oh my gosh, from Cousin Dave. It wasn't even was in the box. It created the memories. That was cool. It was like the little filings or little things of packaging. It was like those little shaded.
Yeah.
And these kids grew them up and made a mess everywhere. And I remember taking pictures and sending it like, hey, thanks, Dave. Right. But you know what? That took a photo to, set it up. That's the fucking memories that you create. Right. And that's not, again, this is who you are. This is part of the business platform. But this is the experiences of the memories. You're in a birthday party and it's the experiences you've created for somebody else. Go back to this. Nobody remembers the shit it's the experiences you made, the way you make them feel. Like that's how things change, right?
I'm sorry, we're emotional about it too, because you don't realize the impact you have with people.
Sorry, yeah, it's not like this real. Right? People get this like here, like fuck.
I'm sorry,
when you put people first and you actually give a shit, the world changes around you. Yeah. So you've lost transaction. So you've got your entire fucking life to make money and spend money. We spend money stupidly, right? But it's like, create those experiences people remember. And like this pivots to, now I come back professionally to the DC team, right? You talked about something when you're looking to bring people on board because you recognize, holy shit, I can't do this alone. I need to have great people around me. And again, the person you are, spread the wealth, spread the joy. Let's all prosper together. Is there a sort of a process you go through how do you know to get the right people? How do you filter them?
Well, we interview them first and we sit around so I had a great assistant, which was a virtual assistant. And the funny thing is like, she was doing my videos for a couple years and I was kind of outgrowing because the virtual, she was in Nova Scotia. And she's just like, I can't do this stuff anymore. And I'm like, okay, I need to hire somebody else on. So we kind of interviewed together. Something they needed to mesh with our energy and our goals and kind of stuff too. So I moved that. So now my assistant Elise and stuff too, every time we have somebody coming in, we kind of making sure that they don't mess with the dynamic. Mm-hmm. Like, so Julia, when she came, we weren't looking for anybody. It was just kind of worked out. She was a referral from a friend, right? And she just goes, I'm like, I'm not really looking for somebody, but came in, but she immediately had the spark we were looking for. She immediately had the goals. There was something, the demeanor about her. It felt comfortable. Mm. It's a feeling you get, and it shouldn't feel like you should want to come to work every day and be like walking on eggshells, especially when you're the boss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to make sure what's happening and stuff too. That's like, and there's, that's kind of, it was a feeling we got. Like, and sometimes I went on like a limb and say, and I gone against the grain, like with some other people, and it was like, it didn't work out. It was just,
Sure.
And it happens. And always trust your gut. It's my end of the day. And like, so far it's been good. It's been well. Yeah, there's a couple of people like I said no to, like flat out. And just like I've been saying, like I had this one agent, she keeps calling me the time. I want to join your team. And I keep telling her, like, no, I've worked with you the one time. And I'm like, I didn't like it. There's no way. I'm like, you're not the right energy. You suck all of my energy.
Right.
And it was just like, you don't do that. It's just not consistent. It was just, I didn't like it. I had this other guy come in too, and he just felt like he gave a creepy vibe. It was just, it made the girls feel uncomfortable. It was just,
so you involve people. You involve.
Oh, hey, yeah. Like I don't do just. It's not the one thing you know about me is stuff too. It's never just been about me. It never has been, and I don't want it to be. Like I bring my wife's career, like it was to her chagrin, is she moved out of photography into staging because she was staging for me. Like I helped her get into that space, and I bring her in as much as I can. But now she's almost outgrowing me too. But I bring her in, like. Same thing, like other people, I like to bring the people I trust. I bring in. I want to see like your opinion on this.
Right.
It's a committee. What is it? It's a group thought by committee. It's not whatever I say goes. I guess it's another way of flipping the script. It's just like I don't subscribe to the fact that it's my way or the highway.
So have you ever had a scenario where you thought somebody was the right person and the rest of the team said, I don't know?
No.
So
it was the opposite.
It was the opposite.
Yeah. We had this. I don't know if it's like the assistant. She's like, I just didn't think it was going to work. It was my last assistant. And I don't know if she reads this too. Like, I just didn't have the right feeling. My assistant at the time thought it was going to be okay. She admitted afterwards she wasn't the right fit. She knew she wasn't the right fit, but I was like, I gave her a chance, but I felt like it wasn't the right one. Now it's when I didn't go with my gut. I'm like, okay, but I'm also willing to help. Like, listen, she was willing to help, and but even you tell she was struggling in certain things, and it just, like she did what the best she could, but it just wasn't. It wasn't the right fit.
Okay, so now, part of the DC team, is there sort of ways that how do you support the growth within the team? Like, what do you do differently?
Yeah, so another thing I do differently too is I don't put everything under my name, which is huge.
Okay.
So teams, what they do when they're growing, they'll have like team name or team leader and everything. So if you earn money, it goes towards that name. I said to my girls, I'm like, well, why would you want to go under David Cinelli or just DC? Like, don't you want to make your own name? Heaven forbid you ever want to leave. It's fine. So you want to make your own awards. You want to do your own thing. So I'm supporting you to that, but I also want you to build your own name.
Okay.
If I make you get your own autonomy and I give you no reason to leave, you're not going to leave, right? But if all you're doing is earning money for me and under my recognition, you could say I'm part of the team, but don't get your own recognition. You're like, you're going to be gone. Like after you're like, what's I can do this alone. What do I need him for? Like, well, why am I giving all my money towards you? Why are you getting all the recognition? You don't think about it, but a lot of people you still want to be recognized. So I said, no, let's do it this way. Why don't we do independent, we'll help each other, a small percentage of what you do over here. We have a tier system. But I'm like, but I want you to get past this, the first tier is going to be a little bit bigger for capital. Once you get to past this tier, you'll make what you're paying is almost peanuts and nothing. But then because the reason I want them to be hungry to get past those 10 deals. I want them to get your shitty deals and get past those deals. And then after that, it's we're just going to kill you because you're going to be doing much better. I don't want you to get past it. I don't want to make money off of you. Right. Whereas other teams, they don't want that. There's one team, like I say, they're split a 60-40, no matter what. So whatever I give you, you make 60% off. The team gets 40% of it too. You could be your mother selling the property, which you should be getting 100% of. No, you still have to pay the team 40%, even if you're your mother. And I'm like, how? And it doesn't go to your name. So if you leave that team, the team name is, so they still get all that money. They get no recognition. So this is where I get super excited because we're talking real estate and it's not just real estate. There's so many organizations that have it fucking backwards. They want to make that profit on the backs of people rather than making them, in line with the people. You're supporting the growth and say, I want you to get better. Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm giving you everything, and you said something really magical there, if the environment is correct and you have the information, you have the autonomy, and you're contributing, why would you want to leave?
Right.
They're not going to leave. The DC team, they're not. And if you start to suppress them, then they're going to wake up one morning with a thought just you just why the fuck do I want to do this? Yeah. And so many reasons look, oh, that guy's an asshole because he left. Well, he's not an asshole because he left. Stupid. If you never ever give him the opportunity to look elsewhere because he was so content or she was so content doing whatever she was doing, the thought would have never entered the orbit.
Well, the other thing is I try to keep small, right? Because the reason why I want to stay smaller as opposed to bigger, especially at this point, it's a certain person I'm looking for. I don't want somebody who I have to constantly feed. The ones that stick around for 10, 15 years, you're just kind of they're around because they're not hungry enough to get their own business.
Sure.
That has never been my mentality. I'm I want a shark. I don't want to. I want to groom the sharks. Because I want to be sharks together. That means we can take over more. We can be the best realtors we could possibly be in this space. We can educate our clients. We can do that stuff too. We're just going to get bigger and people are going to look at us. If you see two sharks, as opposed to a shark and just a whole bunch of minnows that are well, I can't give my business if I go away vacation to a minnow who's going to be eaten by another shark.
Yeah.
I don't want that. It doesn't make any sense to me. So listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with if there's some realtors that their passion is just kind of I want to join a team. I just want to make it. There's nothing wrong with it. Listen, I'm not saying there's anything, but for my team, it's I want to have the best. I want to groom you to be the best.
Because if they're better, they're going to amplify you.
100%.
And so now you're talking about this is what makes the DC team different. And this is what many organizations need to hear. Unfortunately, not give your fucking head a shake. You need to hear this. It's uncomfortable and you need to hear this. And at the same time, this also keeps creativity at its peak.
Well, think about it. If you're in creativity at its peak, but it's also customer service at its peak.
Right.
Because if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't really give a shit about their job, who just wants to be fed, how fucking good of a job are they really going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then that becomes transactional again.
It's transactional.
It becomes transactional. I've heard this many times where these people I'd hire this agent because they're on a team. There's some big teams out there. I'm not going to say names, but you can imagine who they are. You're never getting the head person.
Right.
They're getting the team. They're oh, I joined. I went to the team because I thought I was getting head person. Everybody thinks that. You get that with me. Most of 99% of the time. It's very rare that I unless it's something I just can't handle. It's just usually if you're coming to me to get a lease, like as a tenant, I don't have time to do that.
That's right. Yeah, you're orbit somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, but most of the stuff, but I'm saying, but the same as you're never getting that. Like it's very rare that you're getting the big person. So then if you're getting this junior person, like you're hoping, okay, fine. If I don't get the head person, at least I'll get somebody who's just as good, if not better. Well, it's not always the case.
Right.
And it's actually hardly ever the case, to be honest.
So in the structure you've created, you're designing by choice something very different.
Right. And we're not there yet. I'm like, it's going to take some time. And maybe to that point, maybe I can start giving maybe more and more when they get to the point where I'm at. But again, I'm also, my girls, like my agents that I have working are young.
Yeah.
They're going to get experience. We're teaching them the right way. But I'm also there as a mentor to help them. So when they're having issues, they call me, right, here's how you handle this. So most of the people, when they come to talk to with the other two, have no idea that have been doing this for 15 years.
And this is something huge too, right? Because there's the old, there's an ideology where, fuck, I didn't have the support and I just figured it out. I was thrown in the pool and taught how to swim. Listen, if you've never been taught how to swim and you get thrown in a pool, you're fucking sinking. I don't care what anybody says. Well, I did it differently. The way you did it worked for you or didn't work for you. I can't speak to that.
But on a side note, Jonathan, I'm not saying that I also love to learn stuff. I'm opening stuff, like things I'm learning or changing dynamically all the time. Just because I did it this way doesn't mean it's not going to work. Right. And I also know what's not going to work for you.
Yeah. Because you filmed at it or you learned from it.
But like I've said to one of my agents, I said to they were doing they want to do a flyer and stuff too. I said, that's fine. You can do that. And I said, do this once every week or twice a week. It's going to be out twice a month. It's going to be a lot of money, but you have to do the time. And it may or may not work out for you. But she realized after a couple of months, holy shit, a lot of money. She didn't really get any business from. I've done it before. And in order to be successful, you have to do this consistently. And I was showing her the money, how much it's going to cost you a lot of money. But some people want to try, and it's okay. She can continue doing that if she wants to. You just have to set aside that money and not expect a huge return.
Yeah.
But I've done it before. But I'm not saying you don't do it. I'm just saying, if you want to do it, here's what's going to cost you. Here's what, don't expect this. If you're expecting this, I can show you what the numbers are. But there's other ways which you can do things.
Again, you're going back to the education piece and it's like, hey, you're not attached to the outcome. Whatever they choose to do with it, what they choose to do with it. So this is super exciting. And now my brain goes to, you have this philosophy with social media and it sort of, it bleeds into, it's your holistic, it's who you are holistically and the teams that you build support that. When it comes now to clients, you briefly talked about it. You sit down with a client and you go through the education process. Here's the package.
Yeah.
Do you go through a process with them to get to know them? Do you ever have to say, thanks, but we're not a match?
Yeah, sometimes. And it's a lot of times with sellers.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I sit down and I do a selling presentation, it takes a little bit longer because I have 6 major questions we ask. Again, these are things that no one ever told me when I sold my property. But, who I am, who's my brokerage? What do I do to market your home? What commission? What's happening in the market with your home?
Okay. So you talk about you, but did I hear you say you have 6 questions you ask them?
Those are 6 main questions a realtor should be answering anytime he's doing a message.
Oh, got it.
So those are 6 questions a seller should be asking a realtor when they're interviewing them.
Oh, so you're already answering those questions.
I'm answering those questions because everyone always has a list of questions. I'm like, okay, here's my 6 questions. You can stop me anytime. This is a presentation, but it's not a lecture. So you don't want, but I'm pretty sure I'll answer most of your questions by doing this.
Yeah.
And I also give them books and stuff so I give them my pamphlet. So I have this cool little pamphlet and stuff too, which they take home with them. And I have a whole presentation and they get a whole lot of stuff to take home with them, really, at the end of the day. But when it comes down to sometimes I've had sellers, I market value, show them what their property is worth. And they wanted to list a couple $100,000 over. And they said, well, we don't get this. It's not going to work. I'm like, well, then I'm not your guy. I said, listen, I'm in the business of selling properties, not listing properties. It costs me a lot of money to list. And I'm a single agent in reality, right? My agents don't make money that the DC team is basically David Shallop right now. So all the money that I'm spending on listings is my money.
Sure.
It costs me thousands of dollars, sometimes $5,000, $10,000 a listing property. It's not from the videos I do, because I don't just grab my phone and take pictures. I do a video. I explain. I want to tell your property, so your home story. So within my video, I'm able to do that. I make it like a little HGTV show. We do reels. We do drones. I do 360 tours. I do like floor plans. I have a pamphlet. Then that's all stuff that's it without even marketing. Then I pay for social media marketing. You don't just put it on social media because only about maybe 10% of your audience actually sees it. You have to pay for advertising. Mm-hmm. And then I also just organize everything to something. So there's staging, there's cleaning. Sometimes I'll get junk on my too. Sometimes I might have to paint the property, sort of like a room here and there to bring in stage. And it costs me a lot of money. If you're not realistic, in this last couple of months, I've turned out 3 people that said like, no, they listed with other agents and never sold because they said, if you list at this price, you're not going to sell. I'm like, and this one guy kept calling me. He's not too far from here. And he's like, yeah, we're not getting any showings. So I'm like, you list your property 300,000 above market value, 300,000 above market. What'd you expect to happen?
Yeah.
Then they end up dropping it. So the thing with real estate, you have to like, it's first impressions matter.
First impressions matter.
First impressions matter. And so if you can wait to come to the market, it's got to be pretty close. You have 2 options. Either you list in low and have bidding wars, but we don't do it anymore with this type of environment. Certain environments that works. Or you list at laser pricing, pretty close to the asking price, what it's. That's what gets your property sold. This first impressions matter. And if it's all that, because if you list your property $300,000 more, some people are like, well, it's going to sit there. You're not going to get showings, arguments with your agent. They're going to want to drop the price. You're not going to want to drop it. Like, you're not getting big. Well, the only thing you can do is drop the price if you've taken care of everything else. And then people are going to see like something's wrong with the house. Right. Now, sometimes by the time you sell it, if say your property is worth 1.5 and you list it at 2 million, now if you wait 3-4 months, you're not even going to get 1.5. You might get 1.2, 1.3. It might be your offers.
Right. And so this is all interesting because this is very different. You're not looking for volume, right? There's so many people out there that, there's a certain percentage of, we're talking real estate, but this is any business where it's like, I'll take the volume. I'll take it. And, I'm not going to say no to a deal. I'll take it. You've laser focused, say, if we're not a right fit, thanks. I'm going to tap out and say, this is not going to work for us. And if you feel that I can, again, going back to be of service to you because of the things I do, like I remember, selling the condo with you was like, Dave, here's the keys. I don't want to know anything else. You sent the cleaner in, you sent the painter in, you did the stagers, it was like you took care of everything, photographer. This is it. So it's like, if it's the right person, that's it. And it's like, hey, this is the fee. There's no negotiation fee. Like, you're going in, you're very transparent about it and say, this is what it's going to cost you. And I can tell you, Jonathan, you don't have to worry about a thing. That is the experience. That's the value add.
Well, the other thing I would say too, it's like when you compare what I do for my properties, compared to what some of the guys in my brokerage do, I'm actually cheap.
Sure.
Because there's guys that charge above market value 1 or 2% more, and they do the same thing I'm doing. And they get it. I'm like, I could charge more. I could, but I don't think it's fair.
Yeah.
I think I'll make good money for what I do.
Sure. Right.
So I'm like, why would I make you down? Like, you might need, like, literally at the end of the day, like, we make good money. So it's like, but I'm taking care of everything else. So sometimes it's just the way it works. It's just, I just don't understand. Like, literally hiring me, I show you the stats. You're actually making money by even paying my fee for statistically for my fee. You're making money by hiring me. So you essentially get me for free.
Very interesting. So, like, I have 2 things that we're talking about partnering with the right people. Is there something you do? Like, if anything, what do you do to learn the most about the people to know if it's a fit or not?
Conversations. If I'm doing a listing appointment, there's 2 hours. They're always asked questions if they're engaged. So a couple of things. One, if we're doing it in person and you're constant, they don't answer your phone calls. They don't answer your text messages. That's a big thing. They're not communicating with you.
Okay.
Second thing is when you show up, like they're not both there. They're not on the same page. Like, it's always a disconnect. Like, I remember the other day, like, I don't know, appointment, which I was on there too, the call. And it was just the wife. And I'm like, where's the husband? And they're like, oh, I'll just reiterate everything too. Like, we didn't get that listing appointment. I knew it was, again, and it's a lot of the feel again. Like, it's a big thing having both players in there too. They take the time to answer your call and they want to be there.
So you're talking like absolute presence. We've got alignment. We've got presence. So you'll know right away if they're not wholeheartedly there, it's not going to work. Wow. Is there anything that you specifically do to make sure that the expectations are vividly clear on both sides once you sort of enter that?
Yeah. Like, so expectations, we give them. So part of my marketing plan and the book is they have a basic playbook of what's going to happen.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So they know. And then what I'll also do is I'll tell them what's going to happen. And then later we actually have time frames. I'm like, okay, text messages, what's up, communications, usually group chats and stuff too. And I was like, okay, here's what's bang, 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 bang.
Wow.
And the other thing I also do is, I'm surprised other agents don't do this. I give them the agreement. I send it over to them. I'm like, review the agreement before you sign it, please. So you know what you're signing. And I also send them something too, where like it has like, like a lot of times I'll say, if people don't understand anything, I'll answer questions. Like you want to ask, well, like there's ones with, has like red writing on it. So you can answer some of the questions, but you'd be surprised how many times people will hire a realtor and they'll sign something and they have no idea what they're signing. And I'm like, have you read it? And he goes, no, I just said sign here. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Read.
Actually, I remember there was a social media thing. I think it was social media or something you did where the whole underpin message was, do you know the agreement you're signing? And you're trying to be this to the world saying, guys, look, the agreements are written the way they're written. Read, educate, ask the questions.
Ask the questions.
Right?
Like if there's something you want clarification on, if I can't answer it too, because for us, let's be honest, it's all standard documents.
Yeah.
So we don't even read them anymore, really. But so sometimes there'll be a question somebody asks me, like, okay, you know what? I might need a refresher. That's why I also have like a manager or broker of record. I always have to, like, in case I want to get like the better answer, I can always talk. If I don't know the answer, which is rare, but sometimes there's questions I just don't know. Like, what about this? Sure. Like, but ask the question.
Ask the question.
Ask the questions.
Cool. Listen, it's super exciting. You've shared a whole bunch of information. And I want to come back to something we talked about earlier on. And you talked about the start of your life, and very much a part of life that I remember growing up, watching you play hockey. And I remember coming to some of the games or many of the games. And, those are proud moments, right? As a cousin, watching that, watching you, watching Mike and all the teams sort of pivoting as they've played, as they've not played. Like you went through a goalie is fucking a tough job, right? Not only are you in the game by yourself in your own head the whole time, it's like you're competing at a different level because you're either in or you're out. If I come back to the sports world, because I love sometimes the ideology, the analogies, the interplay of sports, human beings, we have a simple connection with sports. We can talk about sports, but sometimes we fail to realize the interrelationship of life and sports. Is there anything from life that, your hockey career, whether that be playing at a highly competitive level or coaching, that you really sort of learned from and, can take and share with the world about?
There's a lot of things I would say from my hockey world days that I've bring to today's world. A lot of it is the structure in general.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I would try to get people involved in structure is like knowing what you're doing every single day will help you benefit. I don't know if this is a question to but this is what my takeaways were. Being able to work with people, knowing, so within your structure, so that includes like working out, when you have to play hockey, when you have to go to school, when you have like that kind of structure was very, implementing that in your everyday life will help you immensely. It helps take a lot of stress from you because you know what you're doing every day.
So routine your habits.
Routine. Yeah. Huge. Second thing is stress. Right? Handle stress. When I was a goalie, like you have the whole team on your shoulder.
Yeah.
The rest of the team could have an amazing game. You let in 5 shitty goals, you lose the game. You know what I mean? That's so it was just kind of like learning how to compete with stress. So the stressors allowed you to control and like in the beginning and just like learning and just kind of stuff. Just some days you just felt like shit, but you had to have the stress of the rest of the team on your shoulders and stuff to realizing you have to show up every day, or at least try to show up every single day to make sure not to let everybody down. So there's stress of competing and excelling in that too. And then getting into the comfort zone and like knowing that, enjoying that kind of stuff, knowing that the world is, like the team is on your shoulders and excelling at that. I kind of want to do that now. Like I want to bring everybody on my shoulders and let them excel. I mean, bring the team in, like have everybody excel, but also be part of the team like that too. Like that also, right? And also be the dynamic team, because you can only get it so far. Like again, as a goalie, I could be the best goalie. I could score.
Good, exactly.
Yeah. How many days like Wayne Gretzky up until he Oilers first? He wasn't winning championships until he got team.
That's right. Yeah.
So you can't do everything on your own. You can't. So I also from hockey too. Like know your positions and who's best in your position, which everybody can excel.
That's huge. Right. Take that to the business world, especially as entrepreneurs. It's like I got to play every position and I got to be the best at every position. No, you don't, and it's exhausting and it'll wear you out. And right. And you just pinpointed, like You can have all the skill set in the world, but if you're not in the right position, none of it matters. I actually take that analogy to the hockey teams that I coach today. It's like all the talent in the world. If you're in a wrong position, it goes unrecognized. Right? So that's cool.
Or the other thing is too, is like, you can have all the talent in the world, but you don't give a shit. You're not going for it either.
That's true too, right?
Like, how many times have people just wasted talent? But if it wasn't their passion, you can understand. So you need both, in order to excel. I think it's like, if you're passionate about it, even if you're not the best, you can excel. Like if you're passionate about it, like you can skill set, you can compete with some of the best in the world if you're passionate.
Yeah. And there's, it's just hanging out here for a split second at a time. The professional world today, and I speak specifically construction because this is my knowledge base in this space. We tend to look for, like, find the rock star. This guy's got the skill set. This guy got the skill set. But if he or she doesn't fit the fucking team, it's all useless. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's meaningless, right? The old, we hired, the next, Captain America to save the fucking day. Have a good time with that. Because if he's going to, compete in the DC world against Batman and Wonder Woman and they don't fit, it doesn't work.
Yeah, if she doesn't fit the mold, then she just could ruin the team with inside out.
There you go.
and then the rest of the team gets disgruntled because they're like, you're paying so much attention to this one.
Right.
Well, what about us? Like,
right.
And then they're like, and then everything falls apart.
Yeah. And you go back to the hockey world, right? Here, I love the analogy of Wayne Gretzky. Best player in the world. He couldn't carry the team. What did he need? He needed the right support around him. And it wasn't until later on, when they started winning back-to-back to championships or whatever it was in the 80s when they were massively successful, it wasn't until he had the right people there, right? So thank you for that. A couple of real personal growth questions here. Today, who do you admire and how do they inspire you to act?
It's hard for me because I don't look up to a lot of people in the sense that you think, like, I don't have a sports person. I don't have a lot of people let me down. So, say politician has that too. It's like, I don't know. I kind of don't look up to a lot of people in that kind of sense. I just there are some, I know that, and maybe it's not an answer you're looking for.
Sure.
In a sense too, but it's like, I think the person I most looking forward to is the person I could be. I know that sounds cliche.
Oh, that's awesome.
But because I don't think there's nobody I want to idolize and say I need to be that person. Everyone has faults in that. I love that about us. I love that about us. But what I idealize is what I could be, how I could be better. And, I don't want to give you a name just to give you a name because that's not my truth. It's like, I remember somebody asked me before, oh, if you had a favorite, Hollywood actress you would sleep with, or I could even give you one.
Sure.
I never really had one. I was like, it's my realm to I've never idolized oh my God, I need to be that for somebody. Now, if we're talking about sports, there's people always for example, Tom Brady, unbelievable.
But it's fundamentally what you're saying is there's no one person. You're taking fundamental snapshots of certain individuals, compiling them to the next version of David and saying, this is the holistic approach. I like Tom Brady for this. I like this person for this.
That's correct.
You put it into a bucket and say, I don't know who this is. This is me. This is future version of me. Right. So, coming off of that, when it comes to sort of personal growth, if there's something that you haven't already shared, because you've shared a lot about your growth, your coaching and your habits, your riches, and is there sort of one thing you could share to the world that has been fundamentally game changing for you?
The schedule is huge.
Schedule.
And I'm sorry if it sounds boring. I'm sorry. But I went away to Aruba in 19 and I had two of my colleagues take over my business. And they're like, how the fuck do you do this? I said, what do you mean? And they're like, we have two people covering your job, your clients. And it was February. It was slow for me. They're like, we can't even handle the two of us, right? I'm like, how do you do this? I'm like, guys, you need to know how to schedule, put them in silos. And that's, if you know your clients and know the time frames and if you set the schedule and do everything right, it's easy. So I know it sounds boring.
It's not boring. It's that's the fundamental underpinning. If you don't run your day, your days,
your day will run you.
Your day's going to run you. I don't know whoever said it, maybe it was Jim Rohn or whoever said that initially, but that's the reality. If you get, I don't know what I'm going to fucking do today. Guess what? The day's gone. Gone.
I hate being cliched, but I'm like, I wake up early in the morning. I used to wake up at 5. It wasn't my thing. You figure out how to, but wake up early. Wake up at 6. Because by the time by the time some realtors get up, I've already worked out, fed my cats. I've already checked my emails. I've dropped my kids off at school and already started to prospect by the time you brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Why do I do that? Because of my schedule. Why do I not schedule appointments after 9 o'clock? Because I'm like, well, if I didn't give a shit, I'm like, oh, at 11 o'clock, I can do this. Sure, don't get me wrong. Holiday season or something, once in a while, hockey or something like that. You might mess up your schedule for 1 or 2 nights.
Of course.
But do you get back to your schedule? Your schedule will make or break you.
That's beautiful. And the other thing I love what you're saying is you're not saying you must follow this schedule. You're not saying, oh, you must be part of the 5 a.m. No, listen, find the schedule that serves you well for the time in life that you're in and stick to it. It's going to morph. It's going to transition. It's going to shift as you change, as you grow. So, embrace that. That's cool. Common myth about realtors that you'd like to debunk.
We're all used car sale. And we don't give a shit. All we care about is the bottom dollar.
Yeah. And if the listeners didn't already get that to this point in time, then fuck, man, give your head a shake. From your experience, what do you think is the biggest thing that connects people the most?
Honestly, it's your truth. It's being genuine. Yeah. If you're trying to pretend to be somebody else, which we all, when you get a real estate license, you see what a real estate, you fall like that. That's not you. Just doesn't come across. And people see right through that, right through it. I don't care what business you're in. If you're not genuine, there's only so far I can take.
Yeah. And it's not very far, by the way.
No, it's not very far. No, not very far.
Oh, I got to dress this way and see this and do this and drive this. And people fucking, guys, the reality is that people see us through the way that we actually are. Yeah. Right. So it's all smoke and mirrors.
100%.
Right? It's all smoke and mirrors. If you could teach people one thing, what would it be?
If I could teach somebody one thing, it would be know yourself. I mean, sit down, figure out what it is you like, and then get to know yourself. Be comfortable, be by yourself, to know yourself.
Wow.
Because if you're constantly around noise and stuff too, you don't know what to you'll never really, you'll just move into what other people want for you, and you will never be satisfied because you are always filling into a void of somebody else, what they're making for you, not what you're truly meant to be.
Be comfortable knowing yourself. That's huge. Last question. What do you think your future self will remember about who you are today?
That's a good question. So my future self, we look at it, it's so every time you think you achieve something, you're like, there's still a lot more to go. There's a lot more people to help. But the one thing I think I was looking back at yourself, it's we've talked about this before. It's my one self would probably say, you never stop and said, hey, what? Congratulate yourself a bit on this. You've got this. I think my future self, hopefully, you've talked about this, celebrating a little bit more of what we're doing, and I don't do. So I'm hoping my future self will celebrate more and look back at myself and say, now I go you helped a certain amount of people, use yourself.
Celebrate yourself. Thank you.
I think so.
It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. This has been super exciting. How do people get in touch with you?
They can always call me. Well, first of all, visit me on Instagram or my social media. My Instagram is David_Realtor. I'm on, Facebook, TikTok, everything pretty much the same. But you can always call or text me, 416-876-9998. I give my number. Yes, you can call me. It's all over my social media. Or you can email me at dchinelli@royallepage.ca. DM me anyway. As long as you search me, you'll find me.
Yeah,
pretty much. Enough. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I answer.
Yeah. And sometimes the last thought, sometimes I played fun games with you. I'm going to send you a text message and you're going to respond in 5, 4, bang, yeah. You respond. So you truly are wonderful. Thank you for this. This has been great. I appreciate you. There's a lot of wonderful takeaways and I look forward to the future.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Hey.
Pretty amazing, right? So many great takeaways. And it all starts with the underpinning that it was never about the money. It was never about, I'm going to start this career and get into this and go down this way so I can make a shit ton of money. No, it never happened that way. It always happened because he knew what he didn't want. I hated the way I felt when I was on the other side. So he shows up with a people first approach, treats people like family, like they matter. And he plans for it. Look, Dave's biggest thing, know your schedule and stick to it. Be comfortable knowing yourself. Celebrate yourself. So if there's one thing I can invite everybody to do, this is a perfect time to reflect back. Make a list. 2022. What are some of your accomplishments? Write them down, celebrate. Helps you plan, helps you move forward. And then get in the space of the people you want to be around. Dave's an awesome human being. So much more than a realtor, so much more than a friend, so much more than a cousin. If there were human beings like Dave, we would be having real different conversations instead of egotistical, arrogant, dumb, self-serving conversations. Dave does it differently. Thanks for being here till the end. do it differently. Partner yourself with the right people. And if you don't know who to partner yourself with, then find the right people. Find the coaches, find the experts, dig in, do it differently so that you too can celebrate yourself. Until we connect next time, be well and do something great.